Hello everybody. Today we're going to talk about adding integers. So with adding integers, you have three major rules. Your first rule is adding two positive numbers together. And to be honest, this is just like the addition you did in even elementary school. Then we have adding two negative numbers together, excuse me. And finally we have adding a positive and a negative. So those are the three main situations you'll have when adding integers. So again, the first situation is adding two positives. This is just like the addition you did in elementary school. So if we have 9 plus 8, that would be 17. If we have 13 plus 18, you might have to set that up vertically if you're not using a calculator, okay? But very easy to do, right? So adding two positive numbers, the point is that your answer stays positive, okay? A positive plus a positive is always positive. And again, this is the same exact addition you did in elementary school. You probably didn't think of it as a positive plus a positive, even though you kind of knew that at some point. You just did it. But a positive plus a positive is positive. So adding two negative numbers together. A negative number plus another negative number is always negative, okay? Again, a negative plus a negative, that will be a negative. And all you simply do is add it up and keep it negative, okay? I always tell students to think of money. So if you look at number 1, for example, when a number is negative, it's like owing somebody money. So if we owe somebody $9 and we owe somebody $5, well, in total, I owe a total of $14. So I keep it negative. So again, all you do is add them up, keep it negative. So 6 plus 7 for the second one is 13, but we make it negative. And then finally for the third one, you might have to set that up vertically just to make sure you add it correctly. And some people might be able to do that in their head. That's fine. Oops. So when you add it up, I have to smooth that over slightly just because of the button there. Oops. Didn't mean to write that. There we go. So you get 119, right? But then again, you keep it negative or make it negative because you're adding a negative plus a negative. All right? So again, a negative plus a negative, you just keep it negative. So the final rule you have to know for addition is adding two numbers of opposite signs. So for example, adding a positive number and a negative number, or adding a negative number and a positive number. Well, what you want to do anytime you're adding numbers of opposite signs is you want to subtract. So you want to subtract the larger number without sign minus the smaller number. And you're going to keep the sign of the larger number. So again, you're going to keep the sign of the larger number after you subtract. So when you're adding a positive and a negative, it's actually two steps. When you're adding two positive or adding two negative numbers together, for the most part, it's really one step, all right? But this is going to be two major steps. So let's look at some examples. So let's say we have negative 7 plus 4. We'll start off easy. Well, what we do is we subtract the larger number excluding sign. So we make this 7 minus 4. That's going to be 3. And now we keep the sign of the bigger number excluding sign. So for example, we have a 7 and a 4. Well, what number is bigger? 7. So now we keep that number sign. It's a negative 7, so we make our final answer negative 3. Okay? That should make sense, because if I owe somebody $7 and then somebody gives me $4 to pay towards that debt, which would be like a plus 4, I'm still going to owe or need to find $3, right? Let's look at another example. Let's say we have, and usually I'll put negative numbers in parentheses. So let's say we have 6 plus a negative 23. Okay? So we subtract a larger number excluding sign minus the smaller. Now if you see a fancy definition about adding and subtracting, adding and subtracting a positive number and negative number, they'll mention things about absolute value. So we try to explain it in the simplest way possible, okay? So what we're saying is take the larger number excluding sign minus the smaller number excluding sign. So we get 17 in this case, right? And we keep the sign of the larger number. So we have 6 and 23. Well, 23 is bigger, It's actually a negative 23, so we make it negative 17. And the last one, 43 plus a negative 29. So again, we subtract a larger number excluding sign, 43, minus the smaller number excluding sign, which is 29. Okay. You have to borrow here, right, to actually subtract. So you get 14. And now we keep the sign of the larger number. So we have a positive 43, or 43 I should say, and a 29. Well, the 43 is bigger than the 29. It's a positive 43, so we keep this number positive. Okay, so again, you subtract, keep the sign of the larger number when you're adding a positive and a negative. Okay, so here's 4 problems I want you to do on your own. So go ahead, pause the video, copy these problems down, and answer them in your notebook. And answer them without a calculator. This is going to pay dividends for you in the long run, that you're able to do basic addition of positive and negative numbers without a calculator, because now you're going to be able to focus on more critical thinking aspects of problem solving if you know these basics. Okay, so again, try these without a calculator. The next 15 seconds will be blank. Okay, so hopefully you try these on your own. You can do your sign for some of them before you do your work, especially when you're adding 2 negatives or adding 2 positives. So for example, for number 1, a negative plus a negative, we know that's negative. And we simply add them up and keep it negative, so it's going to be 16, and we already did the negative sign, negative 16. Now number 2, we're adding a positive and a negative, so we got to subtract. You might have to write that vertically if you need to, right? But you get 12. And we keep the sign of the larger number. So we look at these 2 numbers, excluding sign. We have 19 and 7. Which number is larger? 19. It's a positive 19. So we keep this a positive 12. Okay? Now, number 3 I just threw on there because we didn't talk about it with the rules today. But any number added to 0, you should know is that same exact number. Okay? So you don't have to use really any rules there. You should just know that adding 0 to something doesn't change the value of it from the identity property. And lastly, number 4, we have negative 35 plus 19. So again, we're adding a positive and a negative. So we're going to subtract the larger number minus the smaller number. Okay. You have to borrow from this one for this one to do it. All right. And you get 16. And now we got to look at our sign. We have 35 and 19. Well, 35 is bigger than 19. So it's actually a negative 35. So we make our answer negative. All right. So there is adding positive and negative integers. The same rules really apply for adding positive and negative numbers, but we start with integers. So these are your sign rules. It's so critical you know how to do this, again, without a calculator. So how do you get better with this? You practice. Practice, practice, practice. If you have any questions, please let us know. Have a fantastic day, everybody.